What is up, everybody? It's been a while since we've been live on the Game Chamber channel, aside from live playthroughs, obviously. So for those that joined us earlier this year, I want to say it was like in April, maybe. We did a live stream after the release of Resident Evil 4, where it was me, it was Rudy, and then we had CP2, and we just kind of went through in release order the Resident Evil franchise, talked about our memories with those games upon release, what we still think about them, how they've hold up, and kind of give our rankings of the games within the franchise along the way. And we're going to do the same thing here for Metal Gear Solid. So we just got the Metal Gear Solid collection that was released about 2 weeks ago. They're starting to show trailers of Metal Gear Solid Delta, the Snake Eater remake. And I just played through the first Metal Gear game for the first time. I played through Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 for the first time in a few years. I've even kind of dipped a little bit back into the Phantom Pain a couple of days ago. So I've had the fever. Rudy's always got the fever.
Yeah.
And so felt like a good time to talk about Metal Gear Solid. So Rudy, Gen X reviews, Root advice. How you been doing?
Oh, dude, I'm great, man. And I want to thank you again for the group and all allowing me to be on the 31 on 31 countdown that we just did last week. It's brought a whole new audience over to my channel, and it's got me like, I needed that, man. Thank you so much. I've been at 31 reviews. It kind of gave me a good flow, and I feel great. So again, thanks for the creative spark, and of course, Metal Gear, dude. It's my life, man. I have it as my phone ringer. It's embedded in me, dude. So when you said, "Hey, let's do this," I'm like, "The hell with the kids, the hell with the Spurs versus Knicks." I'm gonna talk Metal Gear with Cody, man, because why not, man? I love it. I love it with all my heart.
Absolutely. It's always been one of my favorite franchises, and it's not as wide appeal as something like Resident Evil or Uncharted, where it feels like everybody talks about it. Metal Gear Solid is like, it's like popular niche, if that makes any sense. It's weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been diving back into them and rediscovering why I love them, and so I definitely had to have you on. I think even years ago, I think that was kind of the spark of how we started kind of talking and becoming friends. Is you were like, "You're a Metal Gear Solid fan," and I'm like,
yeah,
yes.
I saw you on Twitter. You retweeted something around Metal Gear. I'm like, oh yes, and I just made a comment.
One of us,
man.
So what's up, everybody in the chat? We already got one super chat from Sean Sheridan. Off topic, but thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 6's announcement for a trailer. Are you a Grand Theft Auto fan? I used to be. I've fallen off. Grand Theft Auto 4 I thought was just okay. Grand Theft Auto 5 I didn't even finish. They're the same experience. You know, I loved 3. 3 was like this huge, like, holy shit, I've never played anything like this before. Vice City's my favorite. San Andreas was a lot of fun. But since then, they've kind of lost me. Even the Red Dead Redemption games, I don't really get into. It's just like Grand Theft Auto on a horse. So I don't really care too much about the announcement. I'll buy it day one, don't get me wrong, and I'll play it, but it's not a franchise that I'm that enamored with. And I really hate that Rockstar Games is just the Grand Theft Auto studio now. I used to love all the Rockstar Games video games. You're thinking about like the Warriors, Bully, even Red Dead Revolver, all these not Maniac. Was it
I know what you're talking about. Serial killer, what was it?
Yeah,
called?
where you're doing the snuff films. I can't think. Manhunt. All of those games used to be awesome, and now they only do Grand Theft Auto. So I don't know if you feel any different.
No, I was never a fan of it. I mean, I bought Vice City and I tinkered with it, but one thing I will say about Rockstar, is it Rockstar, right?
Yeah.
Their studio and their team, they create probably one of the best sandboxes for like a world, to like a weather, the details. I've seen all the details with the Red Dead Redemption world, and shooting a barrel and the water depreciates or ice melts. And so it's like, kudos to them, man. They do it right. And I hear like, once a game is released, all the money they spend on it is made back within a week. It makes more money than a Hollywood blockbuster the first week of its release.
Oh yeah, especially Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, the last 3 console generations, that's the only game they've released. They did Grand Theft Auto 5, PS4 they did a remaster, PS5 they did a remaster. They've lived they've probably made more money than most game studios have their entire careers with that one game.
Yep. Yeah, it's beautiful, the detail, and it's I love how people can be playing it for years and still find things like, oh, I didn't know it can do this. It's amazing. So it's a testament to the hard work.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, not wasting any time whatsoever, we're going to kick this off. Like I said, we're going to go in release order, and I'm only talking about the mainline games. There's a lot of offshoots. There's a lot of spin-offs. You got Portable Ops. You got the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. There's a bunch of these really weird side stories that I honestly just haven't played and never really heard anything good about them to motivate me to. The only one that seems to be universally loved is Peace Walker, and admittedly, I've only played like an hour or so with that. I didn't really get into it. So we're just talking about Metal Gear Solid 1 through 5 and the Twin Snakes, the GameCube remake of the first one. So kicking it off with the original, the one that started it all. Well, kind of. It's the third game. Metal Gear Solid Tactical Espionage Action, which was released on the PlayStation 1. Now, I should have looked up what year did that come out? Metal Gear
It was 98, I
Solid
believe.
release date. 1998, September
Yep.
3. Okay, so I was likely 9 years old whenever I bought this.
I was 21.
So I had my PlayStation, and up to this point, my video game experience was Super Mario Brothers and Sonic, and some of the movie-related video games, and Toy Story. And I remember when I got my PlayStation 1 for Christmas, the game I got with it was Small Soldiers. So that's my video game climate up to this point. And I remember like it was yesterday, back in the PlayStation 1, they used to do this awesome thing where like Pizza Hut, I believe it was, would give you a demo disc if you ordered like a combo or something like that. And so there was this demo disc that I think it had Bomberman, it had Tomb Raider 3. It was like 6 or 7 little demos of all these games. And this was like maybe a week or two after I got that thing. I just randomly threw it on and I was playing different things. I'm like, what the hell is this Metal Gear Solid thing? And I think I was stuck in the first part of the demo for like 45 minutes because I had never played a game where you're not supposed to kill everybody.
Right.
And so I just continuously walked like, oh, just punching people, and just continuously people kept coming. And finally it clicked like, oh, I'm not supposed to get seen. And so I played that demo, and the demo cut off, I believe, after you got into the actual tank hangar.
Elevator or something
Yeah,
like
the elevator at the tank hangar. So you would get the heliport and the tank hangar. And even just that, I was like, this is amazing. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, you sneaking around, you got cameras, and so I played that demo, no lie, probably like 30 different times, just dying to play the rest of it. And finally, for my birthday, which would have been in January, so I'm assuming it was 1999 and not 2000. My mom, one of the few times she was around, bought it for me, and I was never more excited to play a video game and get past where the demo stopped. I remember finally getting past the elevator, and the first thing you do is where you're crawling through the vents and you can look at Meryl and you can see you find the DARPA chief. And this to this day is my answer when people ask what my favorite video game of all time is the original Metal Gear Solid. For me, it's burned into my brain how amazed I was at every stage of the game. All these little things that seems dumb to people that weren't there, like being able to, or like when they say you got to call Meryl, her codec is on the back of the CD case, and you're like, what the fuck? And it's on the actual case.
Yeah.
So just that whole meta, like breaking the fourth wall thing. Psycho Mantis reading your memory card, and doing the little thing where he vibrates the controller with his psychic powers, and even just the backtracking element. There was so many things that this was the first time I experienced anything like that it's just stuck in my brain forever.
Yeah. My turn?
Yeah, I'll let you go for now. Before, I don't want to. I'll go on for an hour.
Yeah, I know, me too. Like, we're gonna take the whole hour here, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still have my Metal Gear.
I wish I did. I think my parents trashed on my PS1 games.
I actually bought the original and I traded it in, but like, no, I need to get it back because I just wanted to keep it. So this is the greatest hits that came out. And yeah, the Meryl code is back there. But yeah, for me, I was, like I said, I was 21 and I was already at the moment discovering movies. Tarantino had come out, and the Star Wars re-release came out, and I was rediscovering movies and seeing how they worked and learning about cinematography and finding what I loved. And I loved video games, and video games at the time were always left to right platforms. And then the 64 came out, and then the PlayStation came out. So things were starting to get 3D, and I remember hating it because it was just so different and just so odd. And I remember getting Metal Gear only because like the magazine Electronic Gamers Monthly had a whole article to it, and I read it. And this is before YouTube previews, right? So I read the entire article, and it sounded like Escape from New York. They're throwing all these movie references, and I'm like, holy shit, I love this. I love Escape from New York. So yeah, I remember playing it, and the one thing I remember, the first thing that shocked me, I'm like, ooh, was the voice acting.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was professional, and it was taken seriously versus all the
Jill
other games.
Sandwich.
Jill Sandwich. Oh no, the master of unlocking, and all these other things. It was always done cheesy, and you expected that in games. So when you heard Colonel Campbell talking about the Alaskan archipelago, we have this and there, and then snakes in there, and it reminded me of Escape from New York. I'm like, I got goosebumps just on the intro alone.
Mm-hmm.
And when the game, he's in the dock, taking off his slippers and sitting there, I saw the credits. I'm like, okay, he should be moving any minute now. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to move. It's like, okay, I'm moving in the credits and rolling still. That blew me away because this is the first time, everybody who's listening, I felt I was a main character in a movie. It was so cinematic. The presentation was so awesome. I felt like the action hero finally in a game that I could control. The tension was there whenever you got caught, return to your positions and all that, dude. It just immersed me. And to this day, I will never forget that. I will take that experience to my grave. It was the most unbelievable experience. I remember tearing up at moments, and the game had never made me tear up before. Moments of Otacon and the Sniper Wolf death scene, which I mentioned in my video, my tribute to Metal Gear about a couple years back. It's the greatest game ever, and it's near and dear to my heart. I met David Hayter. He's on my ringtone. I had him record, Rudy, this is Snake. It's just a wonderful example of what a movie fan like Hideo Kojima did. He loves movies just like we do, and he had the ability and the resources to make a game, and it's the very first game that's given us that experience. And I'll take it to my grave, man. I love it.
Yeah, there was I just loved not only the sneaking aspect of it, but the cinematic aspect. I loved all the different boss battles, which to me, they're still my favorites of the entire franchise.
Yes.
They're so different. They're so varied. I mean, you've got something it's a simple shootout with Revolver Ocelot. You've got the tank battle. You've got the Psycho Mantis one, which is probably the most well-known, the most celebrated boss battle in the whole franchise, just because of how layered it is, and having to swap the controller to controller port 2 to confuse him, like another weird element. It's like you've never seen a game do that before or since.
Never.
And it was the only disappointing thing about playing the Master Collection, because now all you do is go to the pause menu and do player 1, player 2, and it just doesn't hit the same. And so I was wondering how they were going to do that, and I was like, oh, this is going to seem stupid to anybody that plays this for the first time. And I'll tell you a funny story too. So 2 of them actually. So you get to the torture sequence where you have to like tap the circle button a bunch of times to withstand. And dude, I'm 10 years old. I'm 9 years old, however I was. And I just could not fucking survive this to save my life. I always died. And so accidentally one day I pushed the select button where it says submit. And he's like, I give up. And for those that have never played it before, if you survive the torture, you save Meryl, who's like your love interest. If you don't, if you submit, then she dies, and Otacon is the guy that is kind of replaced by her in the final act of the game. And so I played through this game literally about 12 times before I even realized that you could save Meryl at the end of it. By the time I got old enough to where I could actually withstand, I'm like, fuck you, Revolver, I'm older now, bitch. And I finally got it, and then she shows up, and I was like, holy shit, there's alternate endings?
Yeah.
And even beyond that, this was one of the first games that I ever played that had 2 discs.
Yeah.
And so that was a weird thing. And so whenever you got to the point where you beat Sniper Wolf for the second time, you walked into this door, and then it would go and it would show Metal Gear Solid, and it would say insert disc 2. Yeah. And I kept, because it was a rule, you don't open the disc tray with the PlayStation running. And so I used to press power off, put disc 2 in, put it on, and then it would say insert disc 1. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I did that like 3 or 4 times, and I was losing my shit. There was no Google or anything to go to.
Nothing.
I'm like, what the hell is this? And I swear to God, the only reason I figured it out is because I was getting furious, and my little brother walked past my PlayStation and stepped on it. And he stepped on the button, and it opened the disc tray while it was playing. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh,
you can do that.
Yeah. And then I switched the disc and kept going, and it was like an accidental, beautiful disaster there.
Oh, man.
But yeah, this is up there with Resident Evil 4 for like the game that I think I've played the most. There would be days where I would just get in a mood, and I would just spend my day playing Metal Gear Solid just to beat it again.
Yeah. You mentioned the Meryl piece where Ocelot, you either quit or you hold out and get tortured.
Hmm.
I was 21, so I knew what I had to do, and he sets it up perfectly. There's no, oh, you can't continue from here, my friend. You got to start over, all this stuff.
Uh,
And I remember just pressing the O button, and I was about to die. And again, I'm 21, and I knew the stakes, and I quit. And he's like, I hope you can look yourself in the mirror, my friend. And I'm like, I felt like shit.
oh yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, maybe, because again, I didn't know who was going to die or not. Maybe he was just bluffing. I thought if I just ran through it fast enough, I can save Meryl.
Hmm.
The entire game, I'm focused. I'm like, I got to beat everybody. I got to go save her. Thinking I had a chance. And when he's holding her and he's like, Meryl, and in that ending, she dies. He's like, Meryl.
Hmm.
I felt so horrible, dude.
Oh yeah.
In that whole speech, I'm a loser. I'm nothing. I'm like, that's exactly how I felt. Man, my God. And I remember just being so mad at myself, man, and just heartbroken that I let her die.
Oh yeah. Did you ever have the strategy guide?
I always try to beat it first. And then when
Uh-huh.
I beat it and I still had questions, I would go get the guide. But most of the time, yeah, I bought the books.
Yeah, that's a thing that again nobody understands nowadays.
Yeah.
You used to go and buy books for like $25 that would tell you in detail how to get through every piece of the
Every
game. It would tell you,
picture.
yeah, and that was one too where you'd find all these little secrets, like these little items that you would not backtrack enough to get when you had like card level 6, like the alternate endings, the little secret cutscenes if you go left instead of right that sometimes I
Yeah.
wouldn't figure out. Little fun things. So yeah, this is a game that even though graphically it's aged all to hell, I think gameplay wise it still holds up very well. I mean, just
Oh, yeah.
playing it last week, I still just blitzed through it. And I was like, this fucking thing is still awesome.
How
And
are the
it's so
controls though on the next gen? I'm not going to buy it, but how are the controls
it
at
was like
least?
riding a bike for me, honestly. It
Okay.
wasn't really that big of a deal. It's definitely the hardest of the first 3 to go back and play, just
Hmm.
because you can't do the first person view, you can't hide in the lockers, you can't do all these things
Yeah.
that advanced, and so it was
Tranquilizers.
very yeah, and so it's
Yeah.
very much just and static camera. You can't like move the camera around like in the third one. So it's definitely the hardest one to kind of get back into the swing of.
Hmm.
But yeah, there wasn't really any issue there.
Okay.
There was a couple of boss battles where I had to kind of try to remember, and one I actually had to Google and look up. I was like, like I'm getting my ass kicked continuously by Metal Gear Rex. What the hell's the problem here? And then I forgot like that you have to use chaff grenades. I was like,
Yeah.
oh duh. And so little old things like that I kind of my advanced gaming brain couldn't go back to.
What was the
But
best fight? The most memorable fight of all of them?
um I think my favorite was always the second time you fought Vulcan Raven, because that's the one
Yeah.
that goes on the longest. Like the other ones, I just blew through. Beat Revolver in like 2 minutes. Beat the tank in like a minute and a half. Psycho Mantis wasn't really that difficult, especially if you had the thermal goggles, which I did.
Oh, okay.
And so Vulcan Raven was the only one that was kind of tense because he's blowing up things and blocking paths, and he gets faster. And you try to use the Nikita missile, and he turns around and shoots it. And so I was like, dude, what the fuck? And so the Metal Gear Rex was the hardest because there's 2 phases, and if you die at any of them, you go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Raven, the second one, was always kind of my favorite.
The one that terrified me the most was the Gray Fox when you first fight him.
Oh yeah,
That was terrible. I'm like, I'm
hurt
dead.
me more.
Yeah, I'm dead. I'm dead. I don't know what I'm doing. But the one that again, it wasn't a memorable fight, but the sniper will fight. But what
Hmm.
happened after the fact, I think that's some of like the best writing, the best music, and the best acting
Hmm.
in a death scene in a video game series. Seriously, man, it teared me up, and it's
Yeah,
just powerful to see Otacon and Snake just talking. He goes, "What am I fighting for? What are you fighting for? We make it
yeah.
through this, I'll tell you." I'm like, oh, you motherfucker! Like, God damn it!
I'll tell you the
Oh,
one aspect of the game that I did not like, that did not age well for me, was the PAL key, where you have to backtrack 3 times to get the
oh
hot
yeah,
key and the cold key. That
yeah.
should piss me off. And especially because I thought you could go get the hot key first, because that was the farthest one away.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so I tried to do that, and I'm sitting in the fucking boiler room for like 5-7 minutes, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I looked online, and they're like, oh, you got to get the cold one first. I'm like, I remember getting the hot one first if I really wanted to, but whatever.
Yeah.
So that was the only time that it was annoying the shit out of me, where you had to go those long ass elevators and sit there fucking hearing the Jeopardy music
Yeah.
4 different times.
Yeah.
But yeah, the original it's my favorite game of all time. This is my number 1 in my ranking, by the way, too, as far
Same
as the
here.
franchise. It always will be. And we'll talk about it more when we get to the end of this and we're talking about the future of Metal Gear Solid, but it chaps my ass that they still haven't done like a modern remake or at least a refresh of this. Like even the Master Collection, it's just a port. It's
Yeah.
still the PlayStation game. This is a game that I think could be amazing in a modern engine.
And you know
So
what? The way Konami's handling the Silent Hill reboots, I
mhm,
heard like the first game that they've launched is like an online community game, and it's just getting ripped apart by critics. It
yeah.
sucks. People hate it, and depending on how the reaction is for the other games, if all the Silent Hill re-releases are just terrible, it's going to give me less hope that we're actually going to get a remastered Metal Gear version done right. I don't know, man, but we'll see. I don't have any faith in Konami right now.
Yeah, they're not a game studio that I have a lot of faith in either. I mean, they got Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid, two of the most prolific video game franchises, and they haven't done shit with them in like
Yeah.
years. Another super chat from Sean Sheridan. What's the oldest generation you could play now? I could play 360, PS3 games, and that's it. Old PS1, PS2 games do not age well. It depends on the game. Like
Yeah.
I easily went back and played the first Metal Gear Solid. I played Silent Hill 2, which is a PS2 game, maybe
You
like
did?
4 years ago
Oh, wow.
on PlayStation Now. I that was a game that, as weird as it sounds, I missed when it was first released. So that was one that just felt like I need to play this to just
Yeah.
cross it off the bucket list. And that one was hard as fuck to go back to. Like just the old school tank. It's weird. So it depends on the game. Some old game, there's PS3, Xbox 360 games that'll make you feel like you've got cerebral palsy,
Yeah.
and it just depends on the mechanics and the controls.
For me, I mean, I guess I can say Super Mario Brothers 3 on the
Mhm.
Super Nintendo or even
Oh, yeah, the
Nintendo.
old school stuff doesn't age at
Yeah.
all. That's just simple, basic.
And I can go back to really anything because again, I grew up in that era. It's like this is
Yeah.
the best we had. This is all it was, and you just got used to it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I can play any game really, with no complaints.
Gotcha. Another question is, did you guys ever play Metal Gear Online? Me and my buddy played it religiously until they shut down the servers. Good times. No, I'm somebody that most of the franchises that I loved, whenever they decided to do an online multiplayer game, I never bothered with it because I'm not really a big online multiplayer guy, and it always just kind of felt like a cash grab to me. So I
Mhm.
never even tried it.
I did when Metal Gear 3 Snake Eater had like an online community. Like
Mhm.
you were either a Nazi, not Nazi, you were either the Spetsnaz, whatever group, whatever, and you were
Mhm.
on the other side, versa. So I played it a little bit, but not too much.
Gotcha. All right. Well, sticking to the same kind of somewhat conversation, we'll move on to Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, which is a remaster remake of the original Metal Gear Solid that was released on GameCube. And this is there you go. This is a game that pretty much the entire conversation surrounding it is how horrible of a remake that it is. God, those fucking discs
I
are so
know.
small.
I need to get a GameCube so I can play this again. I don't
I'm
have a
telling
GameCube.
you. And so I see it all the time on like list of worst remakes. I see it when people do Metal Gear Solid rankings. It's always like in the bottom four. I loved this game when I got it. I remember begging and pleading and like doing as many chores as I could whenever I heard this was going to get released to get my parents to buy it for me. And then they bought my little brother a game the same night, and the GameCube was technically his. So I had to fucking wait until he was done playing Looney Tunes back in action for like 4 hours. And then finally I was like, it's my time. And I thought this was a great remake. I mean, for as far as gameplay, it's exactly the same as Metal Gear Solid, but it incorporates some of the gameplay elements of Metal Gear Solid 2 in there, where you have the first person and you can,
Mhm.
look through your gun. The cinematics, the cutscenes are a little different. They put a lot more of like a John Woo action vibe to them, but I liked that. I thought it was pretty cool. So I don't know if you have a different opinion on it, but this is one where I've always found it to be massively underrated.
No, I loved it. I loved it. This came out the month my daughter was born, and I remember just holding her at late at night and playing the game. And like you
Mhm.
said, at the time, it was very John Woo, especially the fight between him and Gray Fox when they initially first meet.
Yeah.
And it's very stylized, and maybe it hasn't aged well to now, but I loved it. I really don't have many complaints about it because again, picking it up, it felt like Metal Gear 2.
Yeah.
It felt exactly like that. So I felt right at home right away. The voice acting was on par. The only thing I think I didn't like was the original voice actor for Gray Fox wasn't used. So I
Mm.
remember it was a little different, but overall, I love the game. And like I said, as soon as I get find a GameCube, I'll play it again. But it's the soundtrack's great. I love the menu interface, and it's really holding true to the original game. They
Yep.
wanted to like keep the core feel of that game, but enhance some aspects of it, and they did. So I love it.
Yeah, I agree. And this is kind of my proof of like just remake Metal Gear Solid in a modern engine. You don't have to go quite as John Woo with the cinematics, but it's surprising when you go back and play those first three games how actually short they are by modern standards, especially when you don't watch the 45 hours of cutscenes. And so I feel like that's just like a layup. It's like, how the fuck is this not a thing yet?
That's
How I mean,
guaranteed money.
yeah, and until this master collection came out, you couldn't play Metal Gear Solid if you didn't have a PlayStation 1. That is insane to me. One
Mhm.
of the most celebrated games of all time. There's no fucking port beyond PlayStation 1. So yeah, I love the Twin Snakes. I had a blast with that. That was alongside, I think, a couple of James Bond games and Resident Evil 4, the games that I played the most on GameCube. So I've always had fond memories of it. And of the 6 games, that's my number 4 on my ranking.
I have it at number 5.
Number 5. Okay.
Mhm.
Alrighty. Moving right along to a very controversial one, Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. And let me tell you, I don't think I ever anticipated a video game release more than this. It
Yep.
was to the point where I was physically in agony that I did not have a PS2. And I would get furious when I would walk past the electronics section at like Target or whatever, and fucking Metal Gear Solid 2 is just sitting in the glass case. And I'm just like, one day I'll have you.
Oh my god.
And so I don't remember exactly when. Actually, I got my PS2 the day that Spider-Man came out in 2000.
Really? Okay.
Yes, it was like the most awesome day ever at the time. I got my PlayStation, I got Metal Gear Solid 2, and I had some money that was sitting around, and so I also bought the Spider-Man movie game. And then so I played it for a little while, and that night me and my dad went to go see the Spider-Man in theaters. And so
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 2, I remember that whole opening tanker chapter just blowing
Mhm.
my mind, where I'm like,
Yep.
"Holy shit, dude, they took everything and just raised it to 11. You can aim through your gun." The graphics was just like this monumental leap seemingly at the time.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Even just like the way that the codec calls, it was actually like motion
3D.
instead of just yeah, instead of just, static little pictures and all these little things. And the first boss fight with Olga, and using the first person to shoot at her, and seeing Ocelot whenever he comes out,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, that motherfucker, and the liquid arm. It was always crazy. Like, this game is gonna be insane.
Mhm.
And then the tanker chapter ends, and then you start off with another voice saying, "This is Snake," and you're like, "The fuck? That's
Mhm.
not Snake's voice." And I don't know if you were the same, but for the next, 8 to 10 hours, however long it took me to beat this the first time, I spent the entire 8 to 10 hours thinking, "I wonder when I'm gonna get to play a Snake again."
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
and I remember being, like, blown away and yet equally, like, so crushed and disappointed when I got to the end of the game and saw the credits, and I was like, "We never got to play a Snake again."
Yep.
That they're punking me, right? There's another part of this game, like, and it's unfortunate that that is always my lasting impression of this game. Gameplay wise, story wise, boss battle wise, it's pretty top notch. It was very fun to go back and play. The whole like bomb disposal chapter was really cool. A lot of the boss battles are a lot of fun, especially with the newer mechanics. Um, I've grown to like Raiden more. The first 7 or 8 times I played this game, I thought he was a whiny bitch,
Yeah.
and I always hated the way that he ran with the gun. He
Mhm.
always, like, ran like this, and I'm like, "This fucking pansy. Why am I gotta play this guy?" But I'll always remember this as the game that didn't let me play as Snake, and that's always what, like, when people bring it up, I'm like, "Ah, yeah, that one. I remember. I
Yeah.
remember." Carry it over to you. What was your memory with playing it?
Uh, Honestly, looking back, I truly mean this. I don't think to this day, and this is arguably my opinion, right? I don't think to this day there's ever been as much anticipation and hype for a game release than this game was, Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
It was a new console, and I remember I even did a video on this, like where did the teaser reactions come from movie trailers come from? And I specifically remember everyone was saying you have to see the trailer to Metal Gear Solid 2.
Mhm.
And at the time, I had dial up. Everybody had dial up, and you went on the line. You went online and typed in you found the trailer, but it took like 20 minutes to upload. So you only saw increments of the trailer. But I remember seeing it, and it was mind blowing. But I remember everybody was talking about you have to see the trailer. So I think, again, when it comes to trailer anticipation and reacting, this was the first time we were all reacting to a trailer to a game we just couldn't wait to see and play.
Mhm.
And to your point, midnight release, I was there. I played it day one. And the tanker scene, yes, I remember being blown away with the amount of detail and things that can happen. You can get sick. Snake started sneezing if you're out in the
Yeah.
rain too long. The details and the graphics where you can shoot bottles of liquor and see the liquor pour out. So you can see ice melts. You can shoot TVs. It was so interactive. You couldn't do that before.
Mhm.
And it was just you wanted to explore every inch of that tanker. You
Yeah.
know, you look at the posters of the girls on the locker so they can kiss the posters.
Yeah.
All these things, man. So, but I remember just like Snake peeking around the corner and then just going back against the wall, and just the animation and the bandana. It
Mhm.
was groundbreaking in my opinion. Just a huge leap in graphics. And I remember, of course, the beginning where he jumps off the Verrazano Bridge onto the tanker. I still watch it every now and then, once a month, just to watch how cool it looked. But it was an amazing experience. Again, the tanker level was amazing. But just like you, when you're on Big Shell, like, where the fuck Snake?
Mhm.
And there he's Pliskin. I know he's acting, and that Snake right there. I mean, they're not hiding it. But when are
The
we going to
bullshitting
switch?
Iroquois.
Yeah, when are we going to switch? Come on. And I remember being frustrated, but thinking, okay, maybe the next few hours I'm going to play as this guy, and eventually I'll play as Snake. And when it never happened, I remember specifically, I guess this is the first time I lied to myself. Like, I think this is the greatest game ever. I have no complaints about it. And I think I kept that lie for a few years until I finally just admitted, I was really disappointed that I didn't play a Snake. And it was a great game, but it wasn't the greatest game that it could have been. It was the
Uh-huh.
biggest cock tease or whatever you want to say. And the disappointment that we couldn't be Snake.
Yeah.
Yes, he was like our partner, and I get what Hideo Kojima was trying to do. Like, hey, this is a guy, the legend, who I'm fighting next to. No, we wanted to be Snake.
Yeah.
And it was greatly disappointed. But again, hype wise, and just going with the next gen console and playing a game that was next gen and seeing the difference.
Mhm.
Olga, you said that fight, you can shoot the tarp.
Yeah.
And the tarp can blind, it can blind her, give you some cover. All that was so interactive and new. I loved it.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, it was a fantastic experience, man. But I want to go play it again like you did. You just played it a month ago, so I'm curious how it was for you.
It holds up really well. It really does.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The gameplay mechanics and everything. The only part which I was messaging you while I was doing it. The only part that I just got infuriated at was that spot after the big jet battle where
Yeah.
Solidus is in the
Solidus.
jet and he blows up that platform and you got to walk across that pole with the fucking seagull shit on it.
Yeah.
And that was hard because you're sitting there like this, and I kept going like whoop, 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 whoop,
Yep.
falling down. And I did it like 8 times, and I was like, "Fuck this shit."
Yeah.
But yeah, it holds up really well. All 3 of them do. All 3 of them hold up really well. It's a great little collection.
But you know what I will say? It's amazing. I think, again, Hideo Kojima wrote this, but it's amazing how he called it as far as the future, and how the AI was talking at the end, and he's like, we can manipulate information, we control information, and we can tell the truth, but in a lie. All that kind of like conspiratory type of talk. It's amazing how that kind of came to fruition
Mhm.
in today's day and age. I mean, I don't want to dive into it, but there's this channel that I follow. I think his name is Max something, and he has a video titled "The Most Compelling Video Game Conversation Ever Made," and he talks about in detail 30 minutes of all that Colonel Campbell conversation is so poignant
Mhm.
in today's world that we live in with social media and memes, and how they more or less called the future. And
Mhm.
it's so it's eye-opening. It's kind of creepy as well.
Yeah. Were you creeped out at all whenever that AI glitch started to happen in the back part of the game where turn your console off now?
That's when
I
it
need
freaked me out.
scissors."
That's when it freaked me out. Like, wait, because it was like what 1 a.m. in the morning, and I'm by
Mhm.
myself. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously? I don't know what's going on. But that part did scare me.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what was going on because I trusted him. I thought it was Colonel Campbell. When you find out it was AI, I was like, oh my God, wait, what are they doing here?
Mhm.
It went a 180 on me. Like, what are we doing here? I thought it was just more or less a remake of Metal Gear, which in a way it was. But when he went that route, it was very kind of scary, kind of creepy. It
Yeah.
felt like a little horror movie for a little bit.
I'll tell you what I remember about playing and beating this game the first time too. And I made this mistake all the way up until the generation where you just had hard drives built in, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360.
Yeah.
I would always like my parents would buy the console and they'd be like, "Oh, you can buy one game. You can have one game." And I would always fuck up and forget to like put money towards a memory card. And so I would always spend like the first month at least with a new console with no memory card. So it was like that old school, like you die, you go back to the beginning, bitch kind of thing. And so I'm playing Metal Gear Solid 2. And for the first day, I'm just messing around with the tanker segment. And then my cousin came over to spend the night the next day, and we played it all night. Because
Wow.
we couldn't save it, couldn't turn the console off. And so we played the whole game in one sitting. So that's another memory I have with this one is that tension of like, please don't let my dad open the door and tell us to turn this fucking thing off. Oh man.
But I remember feeling like some of the story was kind of weird and like what's he going here? Like when you find out that Otacon's stepmom had an affair with him, and it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
They
I
get into
mean,
some weird stuff for sure.
yeah,
Story wise, we'll talk about it more when we go into like what we want in the future. There's always been a weirdness that Hideo Kojima brings to this that's kind of a part of the DNA, but it's definitely something that I think bars it from a few people.
yeah.
There's always some strange sense of
Like
humor and some
a
weird
soldier
things. And
pissing on your head as you're like on the edge of a pillar.
I got to that part and I was like, I gotta find a way to shoot this fucking dude. I am not getting pissed on. On that same note, some Metamortis says, "What was your first impressions playing as Naked Raiden?" Everybody, whether no matter how heterosexual you are, everybody did the little thing where
Flip
you do the flip and try to see if there's an animation for his
and pause
balls or
it.
something.
Yeah, we
Exactly.
all try to look for his balls.
We all did. Come on now, admit it. Sound off in the comments. It's not just me and Rudy.
Hey, it's a curious thing, it's no big deal. Come on.
There you go. There you go. Well, to me, it was always just like, I wonder when we're going to reach that point in video games where they bother animating a dick and balls because there was always naked dudes and it would just be like a patch, like the fucking kid
Yeah.
at Seed of Chucky.
There were games where, like, I think Dead or Alive Volleyball where the boobs were animated, so
Dead or
you didn't see
Alive.
them,
I
right? But
remember so many people going nuts for that. Oh, they're in bikinis, and I'm like, they're
like,
fucking
they're not
cartoons.
real, dude. They're not real, man. Yeah, I had a
This
lot of
one.
friends of mine like, "Yeah, you got to get rented, dude." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm fine."
I remember the first couple of times they started putting sex scenes in games, and it was the quantum games or whatever, where it was um fuck what Indigo Prophecy and then Heavy Rain, and it was always just so weird. It was just like polygons against each
Yeah.
other. It was always so
I
awkward.
remember the first boob
Even
I
Last of Us
saw.
2. It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
he just bent her over.
I know. When I saw that with my daughter, we're like, "Ugh, sorry." But I remember the first boob I saw in video game, I think was God of War. It was like a CGI
Yeah.
scene, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
the
"Whoa,
little sex mini
here."
game.
Yeah,
Thank you, David Jaffe.
yeah.
This conversation took a weird turn.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2, like it's a great game. I've grown to appreciate it more as I've gone on, but whenever I think of it, it's always the game that I didn't get to play as Snake. That's always kind of my one sentence review of it. As far as my ranking, it is number 5.
What do I have that? I think I have it mine
Give
at
it a 4.
number 4. There you go.
Yep. So basically, we've swapped Twin Snakes. I like
Yeah.
Twin Snakes a little better than 2. You like 2 a little better than Twin Snakes.
Mhm.
All right, moving on to the Big Daddy. We got Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. And I would go out on a limb and say that this one is most people's favorite. There you go. That's Subsistence version too.
Yep.
I remember I was in Washington, D.C. in at the end of 7th grade on a class trip. And it was the last day of the trip or the last part of the trip before we went back home. And we were in this gigantic mall and we were all given like these vouchers to go to the food court and get something to eat. You could walk around, just meet back at the bus in 2 hours or whatever. And I remember walking into a magazine store. And 2 things I remember. One is the guy that I was with, a friend of mine, got screamed at by the guy who was behind the counter because he went to go lift up like a hustler or something like that. He's like, "Who does that?" But I was walking through and they had like a Game Informer or something like that. And the cover of it was first announcement, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. And
I
I
know what
was
you're
like,
talking about. That's how I found out too.
what the fuck? And I didn't, that thing could have cost
Ugh.
$100. And I was like, oh, give it to me now. And I was just looking at that on the bus, like the whole ride home. And it was just screenshots of him in the jungle.
Yes.
And I was like, what the fuck? This is going to be crazy. And I got this for my birthday, the year that it came out. And I remember it being so different that my reaction was not quite the same as Metal Gear Solid 2, where I was blown away. It was kind of like I liked it, but I was like, this is so weird. Like doing the
Mhm.
camouflage and having to shoot the hornet's nest and all
Eat
these different,
food.
yeah, and being much more open world and not as linear. And so it took me a little getting used to be honest. I
Mhm.
think it was, I don't think I really got into the groove of the game until, like, you met Eva, which is, like, a good couple hours
Whoa.
into the game.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so this is a game that by the time I finished it, it was a masterpiece, but the first third of the game, I was like, "I don't know about this. This is so different. I can't tell if I love it or hate it." Um what I will say about 3 is that to me, 3 and part of the reason why I think it's most people's favorite that I can tell is that 3 is the most straightforward. 3 doesn't have near as much of the sci-fi weirdness. 3 doesn't have near as much of the historical footage cutscenes and the Hideo Kojima strangeness. It's very much like a
Mhm.
old school espionage story and even down to the tropes of him, having the girl sidekick that you get to sleep with by the end of it, and she's a double agent, and so there was so much about this one that was cool. It was the first time you got to go back and play as Big Boss, which
Yes.
at that point, I'd never played Metal Gear 2, so I had no familiarity with the character. So that was really cool to go back and play as him. And even though he's a different character, I was like, please tell me I get to play as Snake the whole fucking
Yeah.
game. Do not switch me to Eva or anybody. Um, I remember having so much fun just exploring and trying
Yeah.
to find all the different camo paints and trying to see how many animals I could kill and find and which ones tasted good, which ones made me throw up. Even finding different ways to get around guards. Like, do I slide around on the actual the rope bridge, or do I shoot the hornet's nest, or do I, there was so much room to do different things in this one.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and over time, this one has absolutely remained close to being number one, but it's my number two. I don't think anything's ever going to top the first one for me. But Metal Gear Solid 3, of the three, replaying them was the most fun to replay because it's the most. There's so much variety in what you can do that it's a game that you want to replay many times to experience everything that it has to
Right.
offer.
Yeah. Uh, yes, I did a Metal Gear rankings about a year, maybe 2 years ago, and I actually had this as number one. And I, to this day, I think this game and the original Metal Gear will always kind of flip
Yeah.
places depending on how I feel, because I remember seeing this, and this is already at the end of the life of the PS2, and I'm thinking,
Hmm.
why doesn't he wait to the PS3? And I was curious why that he was going to do that. And when I saw that cover, and I know the cover you're talking about, and I'm thinking, how is he going to get this much information and detail, this world, this living world, in a PS2 game?
Hmm.
And the fact that they did that and it worked flawlessly with no bugs is a testament to Hideo and his crew, because again, you're in a living environment where there's weather changes, there's animals always around you. You have to survive with nourishing, killing fish or frogs, and you could get sick. You and if you got shot, you had to go through your med pack and take out the bullets,
Hmm.
patch yourself up, sew yourself up. You had to do a lot, and it was so much. It was so much that you had to manage, from your food, your health, and your camouflage. That's three complex systems
Yeah.
that you continually had to manage. So this game always had you on your toes.
Hmm.
And to your point, yes, it was like, okay, we heard the complaints about Sons of Liberty. We're not going to do that again. You're going to play as Snake. We're going to have David in there, and it's straight to the point. No 45-minute monologues about presidents and whatever else. And it was like, it felt like an old espionage movie, like a James Bond type of movie.
Yeah.
And yes, and this, I say confidently, this game has the best villains out of all the games.
Yeah.
It's got the best villains, the best catalog of
They're my
villains.
second favorite for
Yeah,
sure,
I
but a
mean,
close second.
yeah, I mean, just the end, the
The
fear,
fear, the pain, the
the
fury,
fury. Oh my god, and they
the
all
boss.
all their names tied to what they can do. And it was just so well written. I fucking love that, man. And yeah, I mean, it did it did something that I didn't think it could do. It can just break new ground. I
Mhm.
mean, the Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty broke ground in my opinion. And the fact that he broke ground again with part 3 with just having this complex system and management system that the player always had to be on their toes and look at. And it tied to historical events, and it was a great story, and it made sense.
Mhm.
It was wonderful. And to your point, I got the hang of it after you rescued that one scientist, Sokolov, I think is his name.
When you meet Revolver Ocelot.
Yeah, after that, I felt I got the hang of it,
Mhm.
and I loved it. I think that's all I got to say about it. But I absolutely love that game, man. And
It had a nice tongue-in-cheek humor too. Like, I'm sure everybody, you try to kill Ocelot, and it's like, Snake, you created a time paradox.
yeah, yeah.
So that was cool.
I like how he kind of bullies him. He like, I like the detail on your gun, but it doesn't give you a tactical advantage.
Yeah, you're pretty good.
Yeah, you're pretty good.
Yeah, it created a cool little relationship with them. And even at the very end of the game, whenever you have the little duel, it's cooler if you lose because it's a blank. And it's like he finally got one over on you, but it wasn't to kill you. It was just to like be on your level in some way. So yeah, story wise, I've always loved this one, arguably the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole double cross with Eva, like basically the triple cross with the boss, how emotional that final battle was, and how like the flower beds and how it changed color after you shot her, and a lot of
Mhm.
really like kind of poetic details in there that felt very new for the series, which has always been much more science fictiony.
Yeah, and
Um,
the battle at the end where you're on the bike with Eve,
mhm.
and you're fighting that tank as well. I forget the name of the tank, but
Shagohod.
yeah, that whole sequence, I was on like, this is so fucking good.
Mhm.
It felt like the end of a movie, like the climax of a movie. But my God, man, it's a lot of memorable moments. I remember the ladder. Someone mentioned in the comments the old ladder sequence. I remember, how long is this gonna go for, man?
I was laughing so hard because I forget exactly what I did. I think I missed my opportunity for a trophy because I'm a trophy whore. And
Yeah.
so I climbed the ladder, snake eater.
Yeah.
And I'm going through the whole
Yeah.
thing. And I was like, I forgot how fucking long this thing was. And then I went to go do something, realized that I missed a trophy. And so I went back to a save that was just before it, and I had to do it a second time. Snake eater. So that's one of the more memorable parts of the game, oddly enough, is that massive fucking ladder. That's just like, who would build a ladder this? Like, if you fall, you're dead.
Yeah.
Um, Another part that I really liked about it was when they introduced the whole thing about you can put your bosses to sleep and you can get their camo that way if you don't
Oh,
do
yeah, yeah.
physical damage. That was
Mhm.
really cool and challenging. Even the two boss battles in the middle were really cool, where you have the fear, who's kind of like a big spider, and you could actually put like poison food out for him to get, and it would fuck up his stamina.
Yeah.
And even more so with the end, where you actually have an opportunity to just snipe him and kill him right away when you see him, and
Mhm.
like he would explode and his fucking wheelchair would fly at you. And that boss battle took me so long
The
replaying it.
original end?
Yeah, well, not originally. Originally, I don't know how long it took me, but just replaying it last weekend,
Yeah.
my daughter, my wife was off doing something, and so my daughter's like, "Let's play a board game." And I said, "As soon as I beat this guy, we'll play."
Yeah.
And dude, it went on for like an hour. She's like, "Are you done yet?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to find him. I can't figure out where he's at."
Yeah.
And so
It
that
took me 2 days to beat him.
yeah,
Not 48 hours, but it took me like at least 3 hours per time trying to play it. So
yeah,
it took me 6 hours to beat him, and then I saw on the this is what the internet was out in the books. Yeah, I found out that if you go into your time code in your PlayStation and just make it like a week in advance,
he just dies of old
he
age.
dies of old age. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I eventually did that the first time. I actually cheated, but I
Uh-huh.
went back and it was like a long battle.
Oh yeah.
And I love that. I can't wait to how they're going to redo that with this remake that's coming out.
That's probably my second favorite boss battle in the whole series, next to Psycho Mantis and
Yeah, it's so
uh
original.
and the Vulcan Raven. But yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, I don't really the third one is I love the original so much that I should be so passionate about that being number 1, but the third one is so fucking good that
Yeah,
anybody could tell me that that's way better than Metal Gear Solid, and I'll be like, "I get it.
yeah, it
It's
makes sense.
fucking awesome. It's great." And it makes sense why, to a certain degree, they're starting with that one with the remake, but we'll get into all of that.
Yeah,
But yeah, this one's my number 2 in my ranking.
yeah. I think number two for me as well.
Yeah, very close second. If you can't go wrong with either of the first
They put
three,
Snake.
really. But
They put the Naked Snake through hell, man, in that game, man. The whole
oh
torture
yeah,
sequence.
yeah, loses his eye and
Yeah,
fucking gets cut up, gets his arm snapped in half and everything.
I remember
It's
jumping off the
crazy.
waterfall. Then you have the sorrow fight. Everyone you killed, you meet their ghosts. I'm like, I killed
Uh-huh.
a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's so deep, man. Come on, that is crazy. Oh my god.
Oh man.
It's
All
also my
right.
favorite soundtrack. There's like a part in the Metal
Yes.
Gear, the guitar Metal Gear Solid cover. I love that soundtrack.
Yeah, there was this is back when like Napster and Aimster was something that everybody was always doing, giving your computer aids to get free music.
Yeah.
There I remember downloading the trailer to this game because this is back in the dial-up days where it would just
Yep.
take fucking forever to watch online. And so I downloaded this and what the copy that I had for some reason started as the score started. Like there was a good 2 minutes of just gameplay before that, but as soon as it dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun,
Hmm.
dun, 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 as soon as that came in and it was him like walking through the mud, that's where my trailer started. And I think I watched that trailer probably 20 times. I
At
was just like,
least.
this game's gonna be fucking amazing. This is back in the day where you would watch something and really get hyped up for games because it would just you would see these technological leaps. And the games have gotten so fucking good now that you really don't see that anymore. You see something like Spider-Man 2 and you're like, "Yeah, that'll be fun." And
Yeah, and I think that's what we're missing now because the Resident Evil 4 remake came out, and I know we did a whole video on that. But I remember
mhm,
there was no innovation that you just mentioned that was like, oh my god, that's so different and cool. It was a
mhm,
great remake and it looked beautiful and it's fun to play. It was like crack, man.
yeah,
But that's what we're missing. Is that innovation? We haven't
yeah,
seen lately,
yeah,
in my opinion.
I agree, I agree. Alright, moving on to the PS3 era, the only game in the PS3 era, oddly enough, and we have Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriots,
Yep.
and, this is a weird one for me because as much as
Did you get this one? This version?
no, I had just the regular one.
Let me show you real quick.
My grandma worked at, yeah, I had that.
It's the game, and then it's like a Blu-ray of a
Oh,
documentary.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. My grandma worked at Walmart at the time, and I had told her how badly I wanted this game, and I'm not lying to you. I think she stole it because she came home with it the next day, and I knew she didn't
Yeah.
have the money for it, but I was just like talking in conversation about how awesome it's going to be, and my grandma used to tell a lot of stories. And so she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm friends with the guy that does the unloading on the trucks, and he said that a box of them fell off the truck, and they were going to throw all of them away. So I brought one home for you." I was
Really?
like,
Okay.
"This is back in the day when I really would never call bullshit. I would just be like, 'Oh my god, cool, thank you.'" But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she stole it. That's how awesome my grandma was. But anyway, this is weird for me because as much as I loved the first three games and as highly anticipated as I was for the first three, I don't remember being that highly anticipated for 4 for some reason. I think
Right.
him being old turned me off a little bit,
Mhm.
but I was like, of course I'm gonna play it. It's gonna be awesome probably," but I don't remember, like, chomping at the bit for it.
Yeah.
And when I finally played it, this is the only game in this list that I've only played once, and it is my least favorite. It is my number 6. It's still a really good game narratively. The way
Mhm.
that they bring so much full circle and they tie up all these loose ends from all the games and they give you these huge fan service moments between different characters, bringing Meryl back, bringing Roy Campbell back, bringing Naomi back, and there was so many things where it was just like if you were a fan from the beginning, you were like, oh shit. The gameplay wise, the chapter where you go back to Shadow Moses
That was the best.
is like the closest thing to an orgasm that I think that I've ever had with a video game, where I was just like, "Holy fucking shit, I can actually
We're
walk
back.
around," and it was just awesome, and you got a good chunk of Shadow Moses to play in too, and then you get to play in Metal Gear Rex and take on Metal Gear
Yeah.
Ray. That was just like
That was cool.
as far as fan service goes, that was like the Avengers Endgame moment of Metal Gear Solid. It was just like, "Holy fuck!"
Yeah.
Everything else about this game,
Yeah.
not really a big fan of it. I gotta be honest with you. I hated the way that they changed the camo to where you just stand against the wall like this
Yeah.
and you just morph and nobody would ever see you. I thought that was always weird. There was a big thing that they had advertised for a long time leading up to this where there was going to be different warring factions and you could like you could affect the battle throughout these different pieces, and that was completely scrapped before the game came out. So people are doing the war thing, but you can't really interact with them. They're just there doing their thing.
Mhm.
Um, there's much more of a focus on action and gunplay in this one than ever before. They really don't focus on the stealth part of it that much. And especially when you get Drebin and you can just buy whatever gun you want at any moment in time. I fucking hated that. I was like, that kind of kills the
Yeah.
whole thing of the game where you're trying to find things and you're trying to like survive situations until you get these better weapons. Now I can just buy a rocket launcher. So I never liked that.
I never liked that guy as a character,
I never
or
liked him
that,
either.
or that monkey that drank Coke. I just like, I don't like him.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. I don't remember jack shit about the boss battles, and that's the only game that I can tell you about
Well,
that.
that's what we differ.
The Beauty and the Beasts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it also, this is where it got really ultra sci-fi, where you have Cyborg riding, you have the little like fucking spheres with the legs, and you had the
Mhm.
big Metal Gears with the like really
The geckos.
feminine legs.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of weirdness in this one. So I even tried to play this on on PlayStation Now, maybe like 2 years ago. I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't get past
Yeah.
chapter one. I got to the point where you reunited with Meryl and you like had to shoot your way out. And I was just like, this is not what I go to a Metal Gear game for, to shoot my way out of situation. It's just, it felt weird.
Yeah.
And so inevitably they're going to do a Metal Gear Master Collection Volume 2 that's going to have probably Peace Walker, Metal Gear 4, and some remaster version of Metal Gear 5. Then I'm going to go through and play it again. But I remember liking the story elements and bringing everything together and how they wrapped everything up full circle and getting Big Boss and him and Snake to finally meet face to face at the end.
Yeah.
All those moments narratively, I think it closed out the series very well. But gameplay wise, to me, it's by far the one that I was the most disappointed in. And like I said, the only one of these that I've only played once.
Yeah. It's funny how you and I are very much alike in a lot of things. This is the only one that I've only played once.
Oh, okay.
It just it was, I appreciate it because it was like the closure of a trilogy or a chapter of Metal Gear. I mean, you had Naomi come back, you had some sort of closure with her, you had Meryl get married.
To the
You got
guy
to
who
see all the
shit himself in every
yeah.
game.
Like,
that kind of
okay.
pissed me off too. I was like, fuck that. That's Snake's woman.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't like the fact that Snake was old, and I did like the tension that they set up at the beginning, where he more or less he is dying. It is Fox
Really
died.
quick, what you mentioned the fact that you didn't like he was old either. Whenever you get to the chapter where you get the young Snake mask,
Yes,
did you
I
play
put
the
it
rest
on.
of the game with that mask? Yeah, same
Yes.
thing.
Even the old pixelated one, like the one that you talk like this.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, it was totally innovative. I did like the camouflage where you're standing next to the watermelons and your leg turned into a watermelon.
Yeah.
I like that. I just remember the controls. This is the first and only game of all the games that I never felt like I had 100% confidence in. Yeah. Like I would barely touch the stick and I would like do a 360 or spin and I'm holding the gun like I'm prone. And I'm like, what the fuck did I just do? So the story element, it was really not that compelling, but I felt this was the final chapter. I liked that I was getting closure with a lot of pieces of Shadow Moses episode that you talked about. I remember just like nostalgia, just like covering me, dude. Just like
a dopamine.
Pants are off. I'm just like, oh God, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But being that I'm a perv, I did enjoy the Beauty and the Beast villain. So that was pretty cool. I did enjoy that factor. So again, Keto, hats off to that. But yeah, I mean, even when it ended, it didn't feel right to me. Because even when you beat the game, there's like a 40-minute movie that you sit through and watch. It's a long fucking movie.
I'll tell you what, too. Why I remember how fucking long that thing was is because I was 17 or 18 at the time. I forget the year that this came out. And I was working at a hotel. And I had a shift that day, like in like 4 hours, and I was at the end of the game. And so I was like, I'm gonna beat this fucking thing before I go to work today. And I remember getting to the end, and I was late to work that day because the cutscene just kept going. And I was texting my boss. I was like, I'm in traffic. I'll be there soon. I'm like, when the fuck is this gonna end? It was like watching a movie. It was crazy.
Yeah. It just went on too long. The story was a little confusing. I was thinking there's elements of like, okay, that young girl's cooking eggs. We're seeing eggs and bacon at the beginning of every chapter. Maybe the eggs mean something. what do eggs mean symbolically? I don't know.
And then
I,
the like the post credits thing that we always have the phone call is her finally making eggs right, and it's just like fucking what's up with these
yeah.
eggs?
Yeah, so again, I just was not connected to it emotionally. I know it was a closing piece of it, but the inventory system, I remember being very confused because there were so many customizing options for each gun.
Yeah, it
I
was
was
like a
like,
Call of Duty thing.
yeah, I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? Like, it just didn't feel like a Metal Gear game. Uh, so I never connected to it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I played it once. I did appreciate finding out who Big Boss was, and seeing that kind of closure and seeing him die at the grave next to the original boss. I'll go, okay, that's
Mhm.
poignant. Okay, so there's some moments I appreciate. I remember the one time I'm playing it. My daughter was very young at the time, and we're both like on the edge of our seats because I was playing Snake, and he had to crawl through this tunnel that had microwaves hitting him.
Oh, yeah.
And there it goes into split screens, and you see what's going on outside, and you have to get through it. So I remember that being the best part,
Mhm.
the most memorable part, in my opinion, because I
Yeah.
felt like there's so many things at stake right now.
That last little segment was pretty awesome where you get that, and then you have the fight with Revolver Ocelot, and they take you through the different eras of the games, and so his
Yeah, like
stance and the music revolves around every game. That was really cool.
yeah.
So, yeah, narratively, there's a lot of closure. There's a lot of full circle moments you get in this one, but, yeah, gameplay-wise, which is always what I connect to the most with Metal Gear Solid, this one kinda let me down to where, aside from the Shadow Moses revisit, I was just like, "This is fucking weird. I don't really
Mhm.
this isn't really for me." It just felt like Metal Gear Solid trying to be other games, and Metal Gear Solid should never take influence from other games for me. Be Metal Gear Solid. You
Yeah.
know, it's like how people get pissed that Halloween H2O was taking a lot from Scream. It's like, don't fucking Halloween's Halloween. Keep that shit separate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I look forward to revisiting it whenever they do remaster it and put it on whatever the collection is. But yeah, it was it's my least favorite, Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and we're also gonna be talking about Ground Zeroes just bundled in with this one because it's basically just the prologue to the game. So, Ground Zeroes, I remember, came out when I finally was in my own apartment, and I had just bought a PS4. I remember it wasn't nearly as crazy as PS5, but PS4s were really hard to get when they first came out.
Oh, yeah.
And so I remember I got really lucky. I had just I worked at Target for a little over 3 years, and I had just left Target to go work at this construction job. And I remember texting my buddy who was the lead over all the logistics and the receiving and everything like that. And I was like, "Tell me when you guys get a PS4 in." And he was the company man. So he's like, You no longer work here, so I can't disclose." I was like, "You dick, you could fucking text me." And so Target had literally that week just started the online ordering service where you can online order something. They would pull it, sit at the front, and you could go pick it up. And so it was just a timing thing where I was sitting there at this new job early as fuck, like 6 in the morning. And I knew that they had just received their truck at 6. And so from like 6 to 6:30, I just kept refreshing and it said 2 in stock. I was like, online order, submit this and that. And so they
Yeah.
pulled it and yanked it, and I was able to get one. And this was one of the first games that I got for it. And there was a lot of controversy for the Ground Zeroes because it was a $30 separate release for the prologue, and everybody was bitching about how short it was.
Mhm.
And much like with the Twin Snakes, I never really got the criticism because to me, there was so much content put into that game that it was worth every dollar of
I agree.
$30 for me.
Mhm.
Now I'm a Metal Gear whore, so you have to take that into account. I would have been excited no matter what, but this was kind of like the proof of concept, the demo reel for the new Fox engine and the new way you're going to play Metal Gear and
Yeah.
how open world it
Mind
was and how
blowing.
you could. It was so insane, and
Mind
so
blowing.
Ground Zeroes narratively is one mission. You save Chico, you save Paz, and then you get the cutscene where everybody blows up, and then you're left at a cliffhanger. It's extremely short if that's all you do with it, but you could spend hours going through this base, finding different ways to do things. There's a bunch of side missions. And so I played the living fuck out of
I
Ground
did too.
Zeroes. I
Went
got
to every
every dollar
corner,
worth,
everywhere.
every corner.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to like master this new engine before Phantom Pain came out.
Mhm.
Then Phantom Pain finally came out. And this is always a weird one for me to rank because I think gameplay wise, this is without a doubt the best of the series
The best.
by a landslide for
Oh,
me.
Yeah.
It's the advancement that they made with the open world and the ways that you interact with everything and how you can attack every mission from 100 different angles. Even the way you can kind of run while being crouched, which sounds so simple, but we never had before. The way that you could airlift in certain things and like send people with the little balloon, and you could take fucking cars and shit, and you could get stuff airlifted in with the chopper and exfiltrate and all these things. It was
Beautiful.
just like, dude, I was like, this is fucking mind blowing.
You can approach every mission 100 different ways.
Yes, exactly. And so gameplay wise is what always holds this very high for me. Story wise, it's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And it's really fucking weird. And it might be tied with 4 for my least favorite story wise. So this is one where, it's weird too, because ever since Metal Gear Solid 2, Hideo Kojima kept saying, I'm not doing any more Metal Gear. And then he did 3. I'm not doing any more Metal Gear. And then he does 4. I'm not doing any more. And then he does 5.
Hmm.
There was a lot of drama with this one. They fired David Hayter, I guess. I don't know exactly still what the details are with that, but nonetheless, the voice of the game, the voice of Snake in this
Keither.
one is Kiefer Sutherland, which is just so fucking weird. And I remember them saying, "Well, it's because Big Boss is older and he's not the same voice as David Hayter when you meet him in 4, so it makes it fuck you. It's supposed to be David Hayter. If it's not David Hayter, it's not Snake. It feels weird."
Hmm.
So all the love in the world to Kiefer. He took a job. He did as good as he could with it, but this game is fucking weird whenever you hear the voice of Snake and it's not David Hayter. So whatever the hell went on with that, you're wrong. Um, Hideo Kojima had a bunch of drama with Konami, and he left Konami before the game was even done. There was so much of this game that was left on the cutting room floor, and
Yep.
it's very obvious when you play it, where half the game is just like busy work until you unlock the actual ending. Um, there's a lot of things in here that feel half cooked, where you have the whole like crew management system at Outer Haven, and you have the different little side stories going on with Quiet, and even the way that Liquid Snake and Baby Psycho Mantis are put into this game feels so awkward. It feels
Hmm.
like they're just here just because, especially Psycho Mantis, where he's just a kid floating around, and it's like he really wore that costume his whole life, huh?
Hmm.
There was so much about this narratively that's so fucking strange, all leading to the reveal that you're not actually playing as Snake the entire game. You're playing as this medic that was surgically altered to look like Snake,
The
and
big
he's
twist.
actually the one that was the bad guy in Metal Gear 1, and that's why Big Boss came back in the second one. That's cool, I guess, but it just felt like they answered a question that nobody was asking to me.
Hmm.
So before I keep talking, because we're going to talk about this one probably for a while, there's a lot to
Yeah.
discuss. What your thoughts on 5 Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain?
Well, Ground Zeroes, I remember getting, and just like you, I remember just being in awe. Especially you see Snake climbing that, that rock, like that edge of that cliff,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just see the base and you see the searchlights, and I'm like, holy shit, I gotta go in there.
Yeah,
It's like I gotta go in there and I gotta search for things. And one thing I did like, and I know the games in the past, but I did like the system where you had like an iPad or something like that, and
yeah,
you can mark the guards, and then you can see them as they walked. I go, that's beautiful. I love that.
yeah,
For me, since I'm old and I don't have a lot of hand-eye coordination, it's slipping away. I love games where I feel like it's second nature.
yeah.
And like I'm in the inventory system, and like after maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe less, it feels like normal to me. I know how to go back and just adjust, just like RE4, that menu, inventory system, the remake, beautiful. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I just felt at home with it. And like controlling Snake was like I said, this is like you said, of all the games, this is the best controls that you can have with Snake. The prone, the crouching, and just having all
The
the weapons,
rolling and
the
everything.
rolling, everything. And I love how all the weapons you selected were there. You can see them; they weren't just like in this invisible pouch.
Mhm.
They're around you.
You could ride
My
horses and, like, go off to the
Yes,
side of it so you didn't get seen.
I love my love affair with Quiet. I love that woman so much, and I'll never forget our times fighting what we did. I called her like, fuck the dog, fuck the robot. I don't eat them. No, I want Quiet. Give her like
Uh-huh.
the gold skin, whatever we need to do. That's whatever. But oh my God, just having her as a teammate and having her snipe, just like take him out. This
Mhm.
It was fucking flawless, man. And I must have put this is probably the most hours I've spent in a game.
Oh,
If
yeah.
collectively, because there are times I just beat the game and I would just play missions over again to try to get an S tier ranking.
Mhm.
And I would do that and just try to uncover things. But story wise, yes, I remember the opening was just terrifying and mind blowing because again, you see this guy covered in fire. you find out later that that's Sokolov, right? That one, that
Vulcan.
Volgan. Yeah, you find out later that's him. But that was terrifying just to play through that because you're hurt and vulnerable. I remember a large whale coming out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, Hideo, calm the fuck down. We don't need to go that
Yeah.
far. Like, just chill out. And at that part, at that moment, I remember being scared. Like, okay, is he gonna just get a little out of hand here? But he didn't. But the world, man. I mean, that one scene where you're on a horse with a revolver and you just look at Afghanistan
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, like, wow, I can go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, let me go have fun. Like, oh my God. So it's the best game, in my opinion, the best controls, story wise, the worst, and one of the worst because it's not finished.
Yeah.
And I've seen all those videos where, again, Psycho Mantis and Liquid, there's a chapter missing where you go to an island and fight him again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's an entire closure to that piece that's missing. The inventory and how to creating Outer Haven again, the color management, the logos you wanted, everybody you can keep. I remember having to put guys in the jail who were fighting in the middle. Oh, like, and then I remember probably the most emotional scene, the most emotional thing I've been in a Metal Gear, because at that point in the game, you've more or less, you feel like a family. It's like a weird type of feeling because you go back to Outer Haven, it's your family, they're saluting you. And when that virus kicks in and you have to go kill your own men,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that really was hard for me.
Yeah.
It was really tough for me to actually do that, man. Like, wow, I've connected to these people. So I remember that being very hard to actually go through, but system wise, flawless. I love the animation. I love the helicopter management system. I love that I can call and have the weather changed. I can, I can get an airstrike done. I can do anything. And I wish we won't, but I wish we would get the game in its final completed version.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a masterpiece. It's a potential. It has all the potential and all the items needed to have a masterpiece in hand, and we'll never get it. But man, it's one of the best experiences I had in the music. You know, having a helicopter pick you up and you have like a final countdown playing on the speakers of the helicopter. That's fucking crazy, man. So I loved it.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a complicated one because I was absolutely addicted to this thing like crack for the longest time, and I actually just bought the little $20 digital version that has both of these games just so I could play it again. And I'm looking forward to playing through some of those missions. But yeah, it was just story wise and with all the drama, it's a disappointment that this could have been the magnum opus Metal Gear Solid game, and there's just little things along the way that seem like such simple game design things that kept it from being that. But nonetheless, for me in my ranking, this one's my number 3. It's right above Twin Snakes and 2, and it's right below the first one and the third one, which are easily the best for me.
Yeah, I had that one I think at number 3 as well.
Yep, right there in the middle.
Yeah.
If the story was more on point, it would be in the same conversation as 3, where it's like, dude, is this better than the first one? I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. I might change my mind.
This is how much I love Quiet. I remember showing my girlfriend, my fiance, a picture of Quiet. I'm going, you're going to dress like this for me. And she's like, why? I'm like, just do it for me. Just do it.
Please. You don't
understand. And she did. But anyway, that's why I'm going to marry her. That's why I got her pregnant.
That's when he pulled the ring out.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you. Come here.
Oh, you're not supposed to talk.
Yeah.
You're breaking the immersion.
God, man.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
I love
All right. Well, so we've talked about all the games so far. We've given our rankings. We talked about some memories. Now I want to talk about the future of Metal Gear Solid a little bit. So we've got this thing called Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater coming out, presumably next year. And this is a from the ground up HD modern console remake of Metal Gear Solid 3. And we have the full like gameplay trailer preview for it out right now.
Amazing.
It looks fucking amazing. It looks awesome,
breathtaking.
And I just played through 3. It's identical. Like it's all taken from the first chapter of the game before you get betrayed by the boss, and it looks spot on like the original game. So it looks like they're going to keep it pretty much 100% intact, but just from the ground up make everything graphically like a modern console.
Yeah. And David Hayter's back, right?
He has to be. I'm assuming it's the same exact cutscenes, the same voice recordings that they are.
Oh, they're not going to have him re-record it?
I don't believe so. I could be wrong though. But if he is, that's awesome. I'm incredibly excited for this. The two biggest things as far as me talking about it, one, as much as I love the game, I was incredibly frustrated at first that they were starting at Snake Eater, because Konami is doing the same exact thing with Silent Hill, where they just start with
Mm,
the most popular one. They're starting at Silent Hill 2, and it's just like Silent Hill 1 desperately needs a remaster or a remake. Like, you could still play Silent Hill 2, the HD remake from the Xbox 360 PS3 days, and be just fine. That
yeah,
game is unplayable.
yeah.
So it was, for me as a fan, I'm like, why the fuck are we skipping to 2? And then we get to this one months later, and I'm like, why the fuck are we starting with 3? I want a Metal Gear Solid remake, bitch. Now, the thing that eases my worry a little bit about this is the fact that they're calling it Metal Gear Solid Delta instead of Metal Gear Solid 3. And
Mhm.
they have not said this anywhere, not that I've seen, but I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe their direction with this is they're going to remake the games in chronological order rather than release order, which makes sense because
Sense.
it's to onboard new people. It's weird to tell them that the third game is a prequel with a guy that you've never even played as before. So the fact that they're going to start here, tell the story of Big Boss, and then get to Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, potentially, that excites me if that's actually what they're doing. They, like I said, they've been tight-lipped. They haven't really given too much context as to why they're calling it Delta instead of 3. But that makes the most sense to me, and that does excite me a little bit, because that means we'll get this, we'll get maybe some version of Peace Walker. I don't know if they'll remake Phantom Pain. That's still pretty new. But remastering things in release or in chronological order, I think would be an interesting way to experience the story instead of the way that we experienced it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't know what your thoughts are on all this, but go ahead.
No, I mean everything like you said. I can't wait to play the remake because again, three and part one and three are like I said, they're going to switch places from being the best or second place in my entire rankings. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping they do that. Like they go with the chronological order. Like what you say, part one needs a remake. I say the NES needs a remake. I
Well,
say,
yeah, you're correct. I forgot to mention that. That's what I was trying to think of in
yeah,
chronological order. That would be cool to get a modern version of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. So you could
yeah,
actually experience that without NES graphics.
yes, definitely. So I hope that's what happens, and I hope Konami's smart enough to understand. Again, the whole Silent Hill thing is a different thing, different beast. But I hope they understand that there's a fan base who's waiting to give them the money. I
Yeah.
mean, if they announce it like in Marvel, like, hey, this is our 5-year plan, phase one, I'll be like, I'd be making reaction videos all week.
Dude, I
Like,
would pay $200 for a Metal Gear Solid remake in PS5 graphics.
yep,
Like, no question. I'd
yep.
be a little annoyed, but I'd be like, fuck it, just take it. Just give me the damn game.
Yeah, I'd buy the collector's edition. You know that $300 box
Mhm.
that you get the figurines and the posters and stickers you're never going to use, all that shit. I would spend money on that.
Yeah.
I want it, and they know it's there. But I hope they do it right, and I feel they're doing that. Again, I seen the that latest trailer that came out with Snake Eater. It's mind blowing, dude, and it's shot for shot the exact same trailer that they released back in 2004 for Metal Gear. The same sequences they had. There's one video I saw on YouTube. They had a side by side comparison, and
Mhm.
shot for shot, it's the same. But just to see his hair move and just to see him as he's walking through the mud, the detail, and I know I'm gonna just play in that world once it comes out. I'm gonna take my time. I know you're gonna get all your trophies, but I'm just gonna be sitting in the mud,
Yep.
eating frogs, and just, and just
How you
sitting
liking
there,
the
dude.
game? I'm still at the beginning.
Yeah,
I'm shooting snakes.
killed a few birds, man. I'm just enjoying the world. Just soaking it in, man, because most I'm guilty of this, and I think a lot of us are when there's a new game. You're so intimidated with the world. We're just focused on what we need to do. We don't take time to smell the roses and look around and just explore. And usually,
I'm
when you do explore, you find that hidden treasure trove
Mhm.
or that one trophy off to the side. So I'm just gonna really just take my time with this game.
Yeah, I'm the type of guy that I do all the side missions and all the little Easter egg stuff as I'm playing the story. Like, when I got done with Spider-Man 2, when the game closed the story out and you saw the credits, I had the platinum trophy. That's how much shit
Wow.
I had already done.
How many
Well,
hours was that though, by the way?
um,
Because I saw you live like every night for a few
maybe
hours.
20 or so. I don't know. It was 6 live streams, and then I beat the game complete 100% of it.
Wow.
But I'm that guy. Like, whenever new side missions open up, I go and do all that shit before I carry on with the story, because I want to complete it all together. I don't want to complete the story and have a bunch of busy work, or I don't want to lose a whole bunch of stuff that I could have been exploring, which you would absolutely do with Metal Gear Solid past a certain point. So yeah, that's definitely going to be me. First thing I'll do, I'll open it up, I'll look at the trophy list, kind of keep a mental list of the goofy shit that I have to do, like throw a snake at a guard and make them fall off a cliff. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I gotta remember, I gotta do that. But I'm the guy, I would be like, well, I went right and there's things, let me go left. Let me go check out this little pocket area. Let me crawl through these trees. And I'm looking forward to it.
Somebody in the comments says delta means three sides.
Yeah, that's another thing I've heard people say too, but that doesn't seem, that's not clever enough to justify changing the title to me. That's just, I don't know. To me, not
Yeah.
putting Metal Gear Solid 3 is to make people think, okay, I've never played a Metal Gear Solid game before. Let me play this one, and not realizing that they're not to scare people away because they haven't played the first two. You know, give people an idea that this is the beginning of the story if you want to start here. And then maybe we'll get different shapes later on. Metal Gear fucking Pentagon. I don't know. But yeah,
How-
it could be that simple. I'd be highly disappointed if they were just like, oh, we wanted to be clever. Fuck you. But
out of all the opening sequences, you know, that cinematic opening to each game, I'm always a guy who never I like to sit down and watch every intro to every game because I just love that. It kind of feels like it's a movie, right?
Yeah.
But of all the Metal Gear games, I say the best intro is Snake Eater. That whole aircraft sequence where he jumps out, Halo jump. You'd be the first to jump, Snake. Halo jump.
Yeah.
That whole sequence, dude.
85 flips on the way down.
Yeah, it's like, oh god. And then Tom Cruise ripped it off with that one movie that he jumped out with Henry Cavill. Frame for frame, it's the same thing. Yeah. But anyway, that's my favorite. Just the music and just the feel. And again, what each of these games normally does right is that it sets you up. This is what you got to do. This is the time you're allowed. This is what's on the line. You need to go. You're starting now. And I love that pressure. I love how it sets it up for you. And this does it perfectly.
Let me ask you this. Now we're getting the impression that they're probably just going to be like basically shot for shot with this one. But with the games later on that they're actually going to have to rebuild, like Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want them to alter about it? Or do you think that they should preserve it 100%? Because I'm actually, this might be an unpopular opinion. I feel like we have the Hideo Kojima versions of these games, the real in-depth, overindulgent storytelling, the weirdness, the goofiness, the 45-minute cutscenes. I actually think when they remake these, they need to modernize it a bit and make the story a little bit more streamlined. And maybe along the lines of Twin Snakes, not quite as John Woo, but make it a little bit more appealing to modern generations and not so prophetic and heady and historic, where it's like there's a battle going on, but we're going to sit here for 45 minutes and talk about presidents and the effects of nuclear war and all that. You know, that's something that some people would shoot me for saying because it's such an integral piece of what makes Metal Gear Solid. But very similar to how I view movies. If you're going to remake something, I want to see you take it in some new directions because that game already exists. I would want to see them revisit those games and do them a little differently.
I would say story-wise for some game, I really have to give this a lot of thought, but story-wise, simplify it and leave some things that really didn't matter out. Maybe simplify the storyline where it's more linear versus all over the place, like the la le lu le lo and all that. I don't know, just kind of keep it simple and direct. I don't know if they're going to modernize it enough because, again, just like movies like to go retro. Everything's in the 80s, so they like to go back and revisit the 80s with all the technology. And I think this is just going to give them a chance to kind of license old IPs and just have it make it feel like a retro experience, like the original Metal Gear and Metal Gear Solid. If anything, I don't want them to change is the voice acting. I want them to approach it just like a movie, cinematic wise.
Yeah,
and I want it to feel like a movie experience. If they go elsewhere without the Hideo Kojima route. But I don't know, man. To be honest, I love him so much, and to improve upon it, as long as they don't take anything away, that's pivotal. Like anything that's like a goosebumps moment for us fans. As long as they keep the heart and soul of it intact, I think I'll be fine. Just don't do anything stupid like cast a woman as Snake or something like that. I'll be pissed. Then I'm gonna be that hate channel on YouTube.
Feminine Snake.
Yeah,
that would be a little crazy. So this is what I'm gonna do. I've never done this before, but I've seen some people do it. Let me switch over my accounts to the Game Chamber really quick. I'm gonna put a poll in the chat and see what everybody thinks, if they should change some things or if they should keep it exactly as is. So give me 1 second. I should be able to do it now.
Like, you can put a poll? I didn't know you can put a poll.
Yeah. Start a poll.
Well, son of a bitch.
Should they change / modernize the story in the MGS remakes? Yes or no? Start poll.
Is this going to be in the chat? Holy shit. Look at that. Okay.
So you guys, the 53 of you that are watching, if you're watching on Rudy's channel, just click over onto mine really quick. And I have a poll there in the chat. And I'm just curious where everybody feels. So as people are voting, how do you feel like, okay, so let's assume that they're going to do Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. Do you feel like there's enough in those games to make a full modernized game standalone, or do you feel like they would have to like double pack them some way? Or have you played them?
I'll be honest. I played part one. Remember, I think we talked about this, but I played part one when I was very young, and I didn't beat it, and because I didn't understand what it was. Because keep in mind, this is the NES days, and everything was run and shoot like Contra. And here comes a game where you're not supposed to shoot. And I remember getting killed with a dog, and all I had was a pack of cigarettes. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah. So I really didn't get that far because I didn't understand what stealth was. This was the first of its kind. But you having played it already, let me ask you, do you think there's enough? I mean, we have the origin story of Gray Fox. We find out what happened to him in Zanzibar.
I haven't played the second game yet, so I didn't get to experience Gray Fox. I've heard the second one's a little is a big step up as far as modernizing, if you can even call it that, what the first game did. But no, I played the first game from start to finish for the first time ever, just a couple of weeks ago. That was the first thing that I played on this Metal Gear Solid collection. And the coolest thing about it was seeing where a lot of the elements of Metal Gear Solid came from, like using the cigarettes to see lasers, using the Nikita missile and remote controlling it to go hit control panels. There's a lot of elements of that in the first game that they just kind of brought to its natural, modernization in Metal Gear Solid that I would have always assumed Metal Gear Solid came up with. So that was really neat. But it's hard to say. The whole game is basically built on the backtracking thing and collecting key cards to, like Metroid, collecting key cards to access different parts of it. It's much more focused on that. So they would need to do quite a bit to full it out to a full length game, or they would have to release both of them in one pack or something. Granted, they could probably get the money that they wanted if they released all of it separately. I mean, they just charged $7 for that fucking RoboCop game, for God's sakes.
How was
it? It's fun. It's not worth full price. Okay. Wait for a sale. But I think that they could do it. I think it would be interesting. Just use the modern engine or something like Metal Gear Solid and have that on there. I wouldn't be too surprised if they just skip over those and stick with Metal Gear Solid. To be honest with you, I think that's probably the more likely route. But I'd be very surprised and impressed if they did go for that. But yeah, that would be really interesting. So I've seen two people here ask similar questions. Gavin Moon and John Williams are asking. Gavin Moon said, "So I'm curious, as a new player, should I buy the collection of the first 3 games, or should I wait for the Snake Eater remake?" Ooh. And John Williams is saying, "I've never played any MGS. Is there one I should try first?" I would say buy the collection. I've seen a lot of bitching online of people saying it's a bad collection and they didn't do anything to me. It's absolutely worth the price of admission to get those 3, well, really 5 games all in one collection. Like, to me, it's worth the money. So I would buy that. And if you like NES style games, maybe start with those just to get an idea where it started with. But I think as long as you can tolerate PlayStation 1 controls, start with the first one and play 1, 2, and 3. There's a gigantic leap from 1 to 2.
Yes.
2 and 3, there's a smaller leap, but it's a gigantic leap. If you find yourself getting impatient with the first one, maybe you can move on to the others. But I think all 3 of them have aged really well. And I think it's got a lot more value to go back and play those games and realize where the games came from and how this all started and why we're all huge fans before you play the remake. Because if you play the remake first, it's going to be even harder to go back and play the original. It's like when you watch the remake, a movie, and then you go back and watch the one from the 70s, almost always you're like, well, the remake did it better. And everybody's like, you don't understand what it was like in 74.
You had to be there.
Yes, exactly. So I would suggest getting the collection. It's going to be at least I mean, maybe not a full year, but I don't expect to hear that Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater or Metal Gear Delta Snake Eater is going to be coming out until at least Q3 of 2024. So you've got a while.
I would agree with you.
Mm.
And I hope we're not hyping it to the point where you think it's going to be the greatest game ever, and you're playing it and you're like, "What the fuck
You
is
had to be
this?"
there. You had to
Yeah,
be there.
yeah, you definitely had to be there. It's a wonderful game, and again, if you heard Cody and I talking about the games, a lot of them were the first of its kind. Like
Mhm.
when I was talking about Metal Gear Solid in '98, it was the first game that I've ever played that had that cinematic experience,
Yeah.
and I'll never forget that. And that's been done to death now. A lot of games are doing that. So again, I don't know if it'll be as impactful to you as it was to us,
It won't.
but from the story gameplay, I think it's a wonderful idea to go ahead and play that. But understand these games are over 20 years old, almost
Yeah.
20 years old or more. So it's not going to have the advantages that you would see in modern games and such. But again, it's a story and the experience that really first of its kind of experience that really holds true to me.
Mhm. And I'll say this too, which is probably gonna make Rudy cringe, but, especially in the first game, it's very cutscene heavy even by modern standards. For most of the time that I've played this game, I always skipped the historic, like, real life footage cutscenes,
God damn.
and you could still follow the story just fine. I'm not suggesting to do that, but if you find yourself where you're just like, Jesus Christ, with these cutscenes, if you skip those ones and just watch the actual in-game animated ones, you'll still follow the story 100%. Those just tend to be when they're kind of diving into the themes and nuclear war and all that. So,
Bitch, are you for real? Stop it.
Oh, poor baby.
but yes, I highly encourage getting the collection. I would be shocked if it's not on like a Black Friday sale. I mean, Target and a couple other people are already doing like buy one get one, buy two get one. So definitely get it for the holiday season and enjoy them. I think if nothing else, you'll love playing 3. You'll appreciate a lot of 2, and 1 is going to be a toss up. Some people that might be a little too old for them, but 1's the best. So deal with it.
Yep.
As of now, there was 18 votes in the poll. 56% says yes, you should change and modernize the story. 44% said no. So I'm very curious on what direction they'll take with that. I think that's going to be a divisive thing about it. There's going to be people that are going to be playing Metal Gear Solid for the first time, and if it's 100% like the old games, I don't think they're going to connect with it. And at the same time, if they change and modernize it, all the old school fans are going to call foul and they're going to bitch and they're going to review bomb it. So yeah, I don't know. That one's a tough one. But for me personally, I would choose the route of modernizing it a bit and streamlining it a bit, making it a little bit
But
more
not too much.
not
Not
too much, not drastic, but you know what I mean? Just like make it a little bit more appealing for modern audiences. I think there's some value in that.
I put a poll since I didn't know we can do that. I put that on mine and asked, what is your favorite Metal Gear Solid game? And at 62% with 8 votes, we have Snake Eater.
Yep.
As number 1.
Snake Eater is most often the one that I see at number 1, and I get it. I think that's the one where it just kind of came together for everybody. I'll ask you this, you know, since we're still talking, going back to Metal Gear Solid 3 for a second. Metal Gear Solid 3 is the only one of these games that was released and then they had like a different version of it come out, which was the subsistence version not too long afterwards, which like
Right.
fixed a big complaint in a lot of the reviews. So the original release had the still camera movements of the first 2 where you couldn't adjust the over the shoulder camera or anything like that. And
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay.
and then subsistence, like I think it had a couple other like little extra goodies in there, but the main piece of it was different was you could adjust the camera with the right stick and you could, you know, adjust all the way around. When you first played Snake Eater, was that an issue for you?
No.
Me either. Like that was
No.
the big thing where they made a whole new version and I was like, that was an issue for everybody. And it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense when you think about it, because this was the first one, at least at the time, that didn't have the radar that showed you the little cone where
Yes.
everybody was looking. And that was such a bitch to get used to. That was the hardest thing that took me to get used to
Mhm.
when I first started playing it. You had one that was similar where it would just be like a little sonar system.
Yeah.
And it had a
Mhm.
battery that was constantly depleting.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And so subsistence was kind of like making that a little easier, because if you can't see where enemies are, it was so easy to just walk up on them and then they'd see you, or the fucking dog.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was one where
Oh, dude,
I
I
don't
forgot. I'm sorry. Part 3, it introduced CQC.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's the first one, and I loved it, and I loved it. Took a while to get adjusted to it, but I just love that you had that tactical type of a combat assist, not just doing like a
Mhm.
roundhouse kick on everybody's head all the time. You could
Yeah.
just like take them down, knock them out, kill them. You had a choice. So all
You know,
that. So I was
interrogate him with your knife.
yeah,
Spill it. I always liked walking up to people and just pressing the button. You take them and fucking body slam
Yeah.
them down. You get like a room of people and I just go whatoosh, whatoosh, whatoosh. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was wondering about that because yeah, I would have to go back and play it without the camera because that's been the one that they've had since Subsistence. That's been in all the remasters. That's the version of the game you can play. But
Yeah.
I never remembered that being an issue until they released a new one, and I was like, "What the fuck is this? What's Subsistence?" And then looking into it, I was like, "That was an issue for a lot of people. That's interesting."
Yeah. It also had the online game. Like the second disc was like the online
Okay, that was the
experience.
other little goodie
Yeah.
that was in there.
That's right.
Gotcha.
I want to play something for everybody. This is my ringer that I've had since 2014, and
Okay.
it's here we go.
Rudy, this is Snake.
That's fucking cool.
That is David Hayter, everybody. Okay, I paid him $20.
I wanted to meet
At a
David
Comic-Con.
Hayter. I wanted to meet David Hayter when I was at MegaCon this past March. But we were so busy and the times for our panels were like always so like we had to be there early. And Sean is 100% work mode when you go into that.
I
Like
bet,
he
yeah.
doesn't really care about any of the celebrities, any of the photo ops. Like it's fun when I kind of drag him into it. But
Mhm.
for the most part, he's just like panels, work, prep.
Yeah.
And so he's like the one time that we had a few minutes to meet David Hayter, he was
Yeah.
just like flying through, and I was like, shit. And so
Mhm.
I kept the one time he was there, I was like, I'll see you next time, David. I'll get you. And then he was never there any
Oh,
other time.
dude.
And so I was so mad. I was like, damn, I missed my chance. But he's at
Yeah.
a lot of those. So if I do go back to MegaCon, that's going to be priority number one. Because
Very nice guy. Very
I'm
nice
sure.
guy.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. He wrote X-Men too, didn't he? He's done a lot of
Yeah.
other things. Yeah.
Screenplay. Mhm.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, any more thoughts, any more things you want to talk about in regards to the Metal Gear Solid franchise? Maybe some things we forgot about in the other ones, or other things that you'd like to see them do?
No, I mean, I think we've covered everything. It's like it's wonderful to actually meet people who share the love and passion.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because again, that's what I think. What honestly, that's when we first started talking. I made a Metal Gear Solid video, and I put the link in the chat, everybody, if you want to check it out. It's one of my favorite videos because I'm talking from my heart.
Yeah.
But I think that's what connected us. And again, oh, you like movies too? Like, holy shit, okay, horror movies, whatever. But it was Metal Gear that united us. But again, it's such a special moment in all of our lives. You know, when you love a platform or a medium like games or movies,
Mhm.
and you connect with something. It's a one of a kind experience. And to be honest, since 1998, putting that in, listening to the music and hearing that intro, I can't name another game that's connected to me the way that one did. I
Mhm.
mean, I've had fun experiences. I mean, there's games that are better,
yeah.
right? RE4, and there's scarier games, of course, but nothing has ever connected to me like that ever again. And
Yeah.
I wonder why. Maybe I was 21 and I was right at that age.
I think it was just that technological leap that we were talking about. Like this was a game
Yeah.
where so many things was just like unlike anything I had ever experienced before. And really, I mean, Metal Gear Solid 2 was a little bit diluted version of the same thing. Like we said, around the PS3 generation, that kind of stopped. It was just
I think
about
so.
graphical advancements and how big the world is.
That's true.
There really hasn't ever been a game that I've played like Metal Gear Solid where just things that seem silly and so not a big deal to people that are just hearing about it and didn't experience it, like swapping from controller port 1 to 2 to defeat a boss, or flipping the game case over to get the codec that you need, or any of
Mhm.
those weird little meta things. Like there was just so much in Metal Gear Solid where I was just like, this is the greatest fucking thing ever. This is so crazy. Like this goes beyond a cinematic experience. It's like the game is trying to like actually come out of the fucking TV, and you got Psycho
Yeah.
Manus moving your controller and shit and freaking your little brother out with those little sequences. So I
You
think
were
that's what it is, where you've had games like you said, Resident Evil 4, God of War, Grand Theft Auto,
they're
that
fun.
objectively might be better games, but none of them have hit you the way Metal Gear Solid was, where you were just like, this is now gaming forever and always. It's never going to be the same after this.
And it's not just Snake. It's not just Colonel Campbell. It's Vulcan Raven.
Mm-hmm.
It's Ocelot. It's
Mm.
Sniper Wolf. It's Psycho Mantis. It's Liquid. It's everybody. It's not just the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Otacon. I've connected to all of them,
Yeah.
and it's just so memorable. Like in how each character was. I think what connected me to them was when they were dying, they kind of confessed something about themselves to you, and Snake treated them with respect. I remember
Mhm.
him getting on his knee and listening to Psycho Mantis talk about how his childhood was, and Meryl calls him a monster. He goes, "Psych, be quiet, let him talk," because
Mhm.
he understands them, and the respect he gave to Sniper Wolf, it was so fucking new and different, man. It's a game that taught me that I shouldn't kill people. Killing people is not a good thing. There are lives behind these people, and there's motivations that make them who they are. And it actually had sympathy for these villains, and it's no game has ever done that.
Yeah.
No game ever. And maybe the Call of Duty thing is kind of like the MCU with movies. Everyone's trying to replicate the Call of Duty because that's the most successful formula, I guess, now. But I think we need new game makers like Hideo Kojima to be, some innovation, some groundbreaking material to connect us
Mhm.
like that game did, and some new ideas that we didn't really think of. So,
Yeah.
it's nothing's ever connected me, ever.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%, and I'm very glad and grateful that I was there for it. I tried to explain it to my son because he gets a lot of his video game knowledge from videos. He watches gameplay playthroughs, and he experiences older games by watching those, which is kind of cool. I don't get it. I can't stand watching other people play video games myself, but
Yeah.
we were talking about Metal Gear Solid, and I was just like, it's hard to explain. I said, you really had to be there. There's not many games that I could say that with. Like, you had to be there. Like, little things like the Psycho Mantis fight and stuff.
Yeah.
You can't grasp what it was like by me telling you what it was like.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's one of those games like that for me, for sure.
You were live like a couple weeks back. You're playing Spider-Man, and you can't answer to the chat, right? But you were playing something, and you were asked to call Mary Jane or call somebody, and you're like, call her. Like, I don't have her number. How the hell am I going to call her? And I put in the chat, check behind the CD case.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think you saw it because you were playing for hours, man. But
I wish I would have, because I would have been like, I
you
get
got
that.
it.
Nobody else in the chat did. That's awesome. We got another super chat from Jason Carpenter. Thoughts on the Ada DLC and RE4 and the new U3 fight? So did you play the Separate Ways?
I bought it and I haven't played it yet. It's downloaded, just waiting for me. And I love Ada. She's
Uh-huh.
freaking beautiful. Anyway, but anyway, yeah, I need to play it. Have you?
Yeah. It was when I was still ill. So I played through the whole thing in like a night, because I was just like, I'm just gonna be laying
Oh,
here.
it's that short.
No, it's a good size for a DLC, but I was just dedicated to playing it all in one sitting. But I liked it. I didn't like it near as much as all the early reactions and reviews were making me think, where it was getting 10 out of 10s and people were freaking out about it. What I did like about it was some of the few pieces of the original game that were missing in the remake. They kind of incorporated into Separate Ways.
Hmm.
I don't want to get into spoilers. It was in the trailer, but like
Yeah.
the laser sequence and stuff.
I saw that. Yeah.
Things like that are. It's like, oh, this is where it is. That's cool. The thing that held it back a bit for me was that you're going through the same environments. You're basically playing as what Ada went through on the sidelines of what Leon was doing.
Hmm.
And because I had just played the living fuck out of Resident Evil 4 to get the platinum, I think I played through the game like 8 or 10 times, just nonstop until I got all of them. I was a little burnout on the areas and the enemies and the gameplay of it. And the U3 fight, I was a little disappointed in, because the fact that all throughout the other chapters of the game, there was elements that was from the original game that was missing. I had every confidence that we were going to get that full U3 fight with the falling cargo containers and everything like that. And you don't. You just get the first phase of the U3 fight, where it's like the Scorpion. And that bummed me out.
I'm sorry, I don't know what U3 is. What is that?
U3 is the boss battle in the original game, where you had it's towards the end of the game where you're like in the caves, and you have there's one side of the fight where it's like a scorpion and you have to fight it. There's another one where you have the cargo containers that you have to hit the buttons so that they drop and he keeps falling.
Okay. I remember
That was one of my favorite boss battles, and I was always bummed that wasn't in the remake. And they only give you chunk of that in separate ways instead of the whole thing. So that bummed me out a little bit. I did like it a lot.
Okay.
But
voice acting, do you prefer the old Ada or the new one?
The old.
Oh, I love the
by
new
a
one.
landslide.
The old one sounds too transatlantean, transatlantic type of style. I don't know. It just sounds very, it's appropriate for the age, but this one sounds more realistic and sounds like one of my ex-girlfriends.
What's you're biased.
Yeah.
But no, what's missing in this girl's voice acting for me in the remake is that she's missing that seductive femme fatale element.
I guess that's what, yeah.
And so I prefer the older version of Ada that's a little bit more femme fatale. This one just kind of it's a little personality devoid to me. She got like a lot of shit. She got like bullied online and everything because people were so pissed at her voice.
That's so
like,
stupid.
I know, every single time. People can't help themselves. Even the Marvels, people are already losing their shit about the Marvels, haven't even seen the movie yet. You didn't like it. You don't like women. Let me dig up 20-year-old tweets. Oh man. Will there be a debrief for the 31 on 31? Yes. Right now, we are looking at the 21st of November. I was trying to get it a little earlier, but it's a rough month for Uncle Sean because of the Marvels, and he does all of his re-rankings. So he's going to be talking the MCU for the next 2 weeks straight. And so I'm telling you, I don't know how he has the mental strength to do it. I can barely talk about that franchise once a year at this point. It's so disappointing. Nonetheless, the 21st is what we have slated for right now. Everybody's good with it. We're going to go for like 6 p.m. EST. So I'll announce it a little bit later on, but yes, we're set to do that for sure.
6 hour live, right? I'm just kidding. How long?
I don't believe so. I feel like we're going to be pretty quick through a lot of the first half of those movies.
Normally you've had 4 people, right? And now
I've had 5 a couple of times, but yeah, most of the time it's just us 4.
Okay.
And Brian's the long-winded one. So as long as we don't have another long-winded one in there, it's usually pretty good.
I might, especially on Wrong Turn 6.
There you go. Yep. But we'll see. It should be fun. I like Black Robe chasing Ada, and you get some Luis backstory. Yeah, I liked all of that. I did.
Have you played Alan Wake?
I haven't played the new one yet. I've been waiting to live stream it. I've just been so fucking busy. I played the original back in the Xbox 360 days, and I liked it. I was never as high on it as everybody else that thought it was like this hidden masterpiece, but I've heard the second one is fucking incredible.
That's what I keep hearing, and I might buy it.
I bought it day one, but I just haven't had time to play it. No,
I want to check it out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'll probably play it tomorrow, maybe. I don't want to be up late tonight. I'm trying to get my sleep schedule somewhat back to normal again, or I'd play it tonight. But yeah, I've been very curious.
Okay.
Jason Carpenter having a shitty week. This live stream cheers me up, though. Good. I'm glad it cheers you up. Enjoying the RE4 Mercenaries right now, trying to master that castle level. Keep up the great work, guys.
Lying bitch.
Just messing with you, Jason.
I've never played Metal Gear before, but I have PS5. What Metal Gear can I start on? Get the Master Collection Volume 1 that just released a couple of weeks ago. It's Metal Gear 1, Metal Gear 2 for the MSX. And so then you have
this is the first HD collection I got. It has Peace Walker on here.
Yes, and then it has the original Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3. So that's a fantastic collection. If you want to get your intro to MGS, that's the best way to do it. Yeah. And don't listen to all the bullshit negative reviews out there that people wanted something that wasn't ever fucking sold to them. It's a it's a port of those games in a PS5 disc. That's all it was ever told to be. I don't know what the hell people are bitching about. That new enemy they added with the laser sequence was pretty awesome. Let's see.
Spoilers.
If you're still willing to try Dead by Daylight, Chucky was just announced to be in the game. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
It's Chucky and his girlfriend.
Tiffany.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't got into Dead by Daylight. I haven't really tried it yet. Everybody loves it, but I got into the Texas Chainsaw game for a little while. I dug what that one was doing.
You and Carlos are playing that, right?
Charles? Yeah, for a little bit. I kept trying to play more with him, but he's got such a weird schedule. It's like you're supposed to be awake at 2 a.m. That is the CP time, and then then suddenly he's like, I go to sleep at 10 now, and I'm like, bitch, I can't figure out your fucking time schedule. But yeah, it was always funny to watch him because he was like so admittedly bad at it. So he would just die and get fucking mauled, and I'm like, well, he's out.
Yeah,
Now
I was
watch
laughing
me.
my ass off on that clip you showed me where you're on a car and a train track and the train's on its way. You jump out of the car and he stayed in the car.
He just drove into it. It
Like,
was
what are you
fucking
doing?
great.
Get out,
I
man.
fucking cried laughing. I was choking. I was like, you didn't even get like you just drove. What the fuck? Oh, that was so great. Oh man. Dead by Daylight has the most toxic community ever. It made me stop playing. I don't know, dude. I feel like every community's
Try
toxic
dating
nowadays.
advice.
Yeah.
That's a toxic community.
No shit, dude. I dabbled in your world. That one chick that was shaming her husband for not doing the laundry right, and I chimed in
Oh
on that, and I
God.
was like, "Fuck this! I am, I'm not diving into this ever
You know,
again."
the Halloween community was bad. Wait till you jump
Oh
in there.
yeah, telling you, Jesus.
I don't
All
know,
right,
miserable
guys.
people.
Well, we're right at about 2 hours, which is perfect for this. Thank you everybody that joined us. Thank you everybody that dropped a couple of super chats. This was a lot of fun. If you haven't played Metal Gear Solid, I've already said it a few times, but get the Master Collection. As a Metal Gear Solid fan, it's really good. I have no issues with it whatsoever. I think it's exactly what it was sold to be. And then we'll all probably reconvene whenever Metal Gear Solid Delta comes out, and me and Rudy will compare notes
Yes.
on that one.
Yes, definitely.
Rudy, anything coming up on Root Advice or Gen X reviews that you want to plug?
If you don't mind, I'll take a couple minutes here. I'm actually going to pull back on the Root Device YouTube channel. It's just the Facebook platform and the TikTok platform seem to be where it's at. I just couldn't get the engagement there on the Root Device. I'm still going to upload podcasts, things like that. But now that my fiance is living with me and she kind of wants to be involved in the movie reviews, we watch them all the time. She goes, "Hey, you can be like a Joe Bob and I'll be Darcy. I want to get involved." So it's kind of like, yeah, let's do that. So I again, in the 31 and 31 invitation that I was a part of, just kind of reignited the creative fuel. So I love talking about movies again, and that's going to be what I'm focusing on. I'm actually going to record after this my Terrified review, which is the first movie the director of When Evil Lurks, Damien Rugna.
Okay.
That's his first movie. I loved When Evil Lurks so much. I went and saw his first movie, so I'm gonna do a review on that.
Okay.
And some people wanted me to see that review that movie that came out, the Back to the Future slasher movie that came out. You reviewed
Totally
it.
Killer.
Yeah,
It's good.
yeah, I saw it. I thought it was fun,
Mhm.
but some people were requesting that. So, but definitely the next review is going to be Terrified, and yeah, I can't wait for the 31 on 31 debrief. That's going to be a fun 5-hour conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on my channel, this month is very light as far as new releases. So I'm gonna have to get a little creative with some other things. I mean, Thanksgiving is really the only thing coming out that I have any interest in. We got the Marvels tomorrow. I could give a fuck, but I'm required basically to watch that one. It's a Wonderful Knife seems interesting, but I think it's going to be in select theaters, so it might not be near me. Napoleon might be cool, but not really my thing. Good Burger 2. As weird as that is, it sounds like 90s nostalgia is awesome, so I'll probably talk about that in some way. But I recorded a video today. I actually wanted to release it today, but I've been a little under the weather the last couple of days and been slowed down. But doing another tier list video, and I'm going to be focusing on horror remakes. So that is the list that I'm going to be doing, and those are the categories. I recorded it today. It's going to be a little over an hour long, and that should be a lot of fun because people get very passionate when it comes to the horror remakes. So that'll be a video that should be dropping tomorrow. And then you'll have the Marvels review on Friday. If I can see It's a Wonderful Knife, that'll be this weekend. Otherwise, we'll pick back up next week. And I'm going to try to pick back up on the John Carpenter review series. Finally, even though that fucking thing is cursed. So you have Big Trouble in Little China, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, Escape from LA are the next 3 that I need to do. I also would like to do, after Thanksgiving comes out, like a top 10 holiday horror video, like My Bloody Valentine and Christmas horror and things like that. That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can find the time, I would also like to revisit this idea right here, but do horror requels instead of remakes. So things like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Well, there's like 3 requels in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but things that aren't remakes, but legacy sequels, Halloween 2018, things like that. I think there's enough of them where I could either do a tier list or just a straight ranking video. So I want to talk about that.
That tier ranking, you created that on that website, right?
Yeah, Tier Maker.
Yeah. Can you send me the link? Because I want to rip off your idea.
Yeah.
You did all the work. So I was like, hey, I'd love to talk about that.
I always like doing that. Get all. I got really lucky when I did the Saw Traps tier list last
Somebody
month.
had made it.
somebody had already made it.
Like,
And I was
oh,
like,
okay.
oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You saved all 78 fucking pictures of me having to find it.
Oh,
And he had already given titles to all of them. So God bless you.
God
You
bless
saved
that
me like
whoever he
2
is.
hours of work.
Yeah.
Tedious bullshit too. So yeah, that's what's coming up on this channel and that channel. Thank you guys for watching. And with all of that, we will bid you a good night as long as I have an outro, which I do. Peace.